and there's been a sharp decline in the inflationary figures for the month of March, as the Statistical Service has released some new figures pointing out that this is a significant decline of about 7.8% in the inflationary figures. Ghana rose to a historic 54.1%, but it appears that we're beginning to make some marginal gains. Here's government statistician Professor Samuel Kobina announcing that at a news conference earlier today.
Consumer Price Index and rate of inflation for the month of March 2023. Consumer Price Index for the month of March 2023 stood at 166.6 indices relative to 114.9 that was recorded for the same time March 2022. Given these two price indices, that is 166.6 for March 2023 and 114.9 for March 2022, year-on-year inflation for the month of March 2023 was 45.0%. This means that prices of goods and services on the average have gone up by 45.0% in March 2023. We continue to see a decline in the rate of increase. So although we still continue to record inflation rates that are showing higher prices over time, the rate of increases have been declining. It will be recalled that in the month of December 2022, when we reached a peak of 54.1%, it decreased by 0.5 percentage points in January 2023 and further decreased by 0.8 percentage point in February 2023, and for the month of March 2023 we are seeing a 7.8 percentage point difference between the year-on-year inflation that was recorded for the month of February 2023 and March 2023. So conclusively, we have seen a sharper decline in the rate of change in our inflation rate between February 2023 and March 2023, although prices of goods and services on a year-on-year basis have seen an increase of 45 percentage points annually. On a month-on-month basis, we have recorded a deflation, and this deflation is 1.2%. That is between February 2023 and March 2023. Prices of goods and services on the average have gone down by 1.2%. This deflation that we have recorded in 2023 saw its kind in September 2020. So the last time we saw a deflation in a month-on-month inflation of about 1.1% in August 2020 and about 0.8% in September 2020. We've now seen another deflation for the month of March 2023, with prices of goods and services on a month-on-month basis going down by 1.2%. We do the first level disaggregation from the perspective of food inflation and non-food inflation, and also further do the disaggregation based on locally produced items and imported items. From a food and non-food inflation perspective, we see a percentage point difference of 10.2 percentage points, as food inflation recorded 50.8 for the month of March 2023 relative to 40.6 for non-food inflation for the same period, March 2023, culminating in the 10.2 percentage point difference between food inflation and non-food inflation. From a locally produced item perspective, we did record locally produced items 41.9% for the month of March 2023, whereas imported items inflation was 51.6% for the month of March 2023.
Okay, so what's accounting for the latest figures, and how can we sustain the gains we made? Isaac Ofieje with our research desk is joining us with more on this. Isaac, the last time we looked at a number of factors accounting for the sharp rise in the inflationary figures. Now it's beginning to come down. Significant figure, 7.8%. How do we describe this?
So if you look at what the governor actually reported, this is the first time we are recording a deflation on month-on-month basis. The last time we ever recorded deflation of 1.2% was in somewhere September 2020. So it's good news for us, but we've been talking about some of the key drivers. First has to do with the stability that the cedi is striking at the moment. We know that the cedi has appreciated by some percentage. We started the year with around 13 cedi, a dollar to 13 cedis, 50 pesos. Now, if you have about 10 cedis or 11 cedis, you can afford $1. That's one aspect. There's also the stability we are getting from the, fuel prices. Since we began the year, fuel prices have dropped by more than 50%. That's also another aspect. And then there's also what we are seeing in the international front, external factors where global inflation is coming down. US is now doing some sort of monetary policy tightening and all that. And all of these things are good news for us. The CD stabilizing, and then also fuel prices are coming down. One aspect that we have to look at is that food inflation is one of the key drivers of this headline inflation of 45%. And this is because, food items from farm gate are also now dropping. We've also seen producer price index for last month dropping. And that's the first indication that if you see producer price index falling, it's going to follow with a drop in consumer price index. But this time around, the decline or the drop in inflation has actually, is surprising, and is beyond what we actually projected that was going to fall by.
Is there a fair distribution of what's happening across the country? Because when the last figures were released, it wasn't as uniform as the national picture was. So what's the breakdown in terms of perhaps the regional figures?
Well, we still have some regions having inflation rate above the national average. And some time ago, inflation was very low in the eastern region, but currently is one of the leading regions with very high inflation rate. So we know the headline figure is 40%, but eastern region is still having inflation rates of 63.2%. Greater Accra region, there's some sort of improvement. Last 2 months, inflation for February was around more than 55%. Currently, Greater Accra region, the inflation is, although the headlines figure is 45%, we have Greater Accra recording 55%. It's not that huge when you compare it to that of Eastern region. Central region is still recording very high inflation rates of 57.8%. In the northern regions, we have Upper West region recording rates exactly as the national average, 45%, Northeast region, 48.7%. So it's not as uniform as you may want it, but we have more of the regions recording rates below or equal to the national average of 45%.
And when it comes to the items that are driving inflation, are there some top ones on the list released by the Statistical Service?
So there are some items recording inflation rate above the headline figure. So I have them on the screen right now. If you look at fruits and vegetables, recorded a month of year-on-year inflation rate of 77.1%. Milk, dairy products, and eggs reported inflation rate of 73.2%. Tea and other plant products, 72%. Cereals and cereal products, 68.8%. Sugar, confectionery, and desserts, about 65.8%. All of these items recording rates above, the headline figure of 45%. But the most important thing is that imported inflation is going down, and that's actually affecting the national average that we have, which is around 45%.
And well, these may be some items that we're looking at, but if you look at the projections that we're seeing, is this likely to take a downward spiral, as many experts will predict that, well, we see some progress, it may go down further? What's the outlook, really?
Well, we are hoping to take inspiration from what happened in Zambia when, right after they got the IMF staff level agreement, we saw two things happening. Inflation was going down significantly, and also the Zambian kwacha was one of the best performing currencies against the US greenback or the United States dollar. And right after Ghana, we also got a staff level agreement. We've seen so many things panning out well. Inflation is dropping. There's a third time that we've seen inflation declining. And one thing probably we're also doing right is that, remember when the MPC press release was actually, the governor of the central bank said that, we are seeing inflation coming down, but we'll still go ahead to keep policy rates very high, more than 29%. So those are some of the things that we are looking at. So we're actually expecting that inflation will decline, but we wanted it to decline to a certain level that we probably will see that it will have effects on other indicators of the economy. That's why we still kept the policy rates high. So we are hoping to take inspiration from Zambia, that when they got the staff level agreement, some of these things started happening. But to sustain this, we need to look at fuel prices. We need to make sure that the cedi is also stable and other, indicators.
Okay, Isaac, just hold on for me. Let's bring in Courage Buti, an economist, of course, with GCB Capital. Courage, is a good time to be talking to you. Many consumers out there happy about the figures that we have, but what's going to be the actual impact, knowing that inflation is somewhere around 45%?
Yes, it's a refreshing, if you like, stat. You realize cost of credit is very high, and that is because the central bank has been acting aggressively to try to rein in inflation. With inflation now on this part of decline, I wouldn't say immediately we'll see policy rate reduction, but you might not expect any more increases at this point in time as they try to anchor inflation to a stable part of decline, really. What that will mean is that over time, you will see interest rates fall sufficiently. And when we get to the point where it warrants a cut in the policy rate, the Ghana reference rate would also respond in that regard. And then you can begin to see cost of credit ease a bit on the market. It also means that the rate at which you see prices increase, which is the headache for most Ghanaians or almost all Ghanaians, those rates are slowing down marginally. And that is a trend we expect will continue into the second half of the year. And so cost of living should ease a bit, and that should pave way for expenditures which otherwise would have been going into, or the quick increases or the rapid increases in prices would now free some cash that will go into some other productive, maybe personal investments and here and there. That will mean that our lives could be better in the future. So it's a start of something great, and we hope that the pace will be sustained till we get back to the target band of inflation.
Do you see this being driven much more by the markets, or this is being driven much more by the policy measures, the fiscal measures being taken?
Well, what are the drivers of inflation so far? I think chiefly it is from food inflation, it's from petroleum prices at the pumps, it's from the exchange rate dynamics, really. And so to determine what has caused the decline in inflation, let's look at the exchange rate. Volatile, yes, but largely appreciating over the last few weeks. What is the driver of that appreciation? I wouldn't say it is in particular any policy intervention directly, but I think it's a collection of things, including the progress with IMF and the fact that we could be close to a deal soon. So I wouldn't attribute that to a particular policy per se. And the fundamentals of the currency hasn't really changed from where we knew it was, really. And so I think it's optimism from the market that is driving it. On petroleum prices, there are a number of things. There is the gold for oil, whose impact I cannot independently ascertain because the hard figures are not there for us to independently assess. But then you know also that on the global market for crude oil, prices are declining and continue to decline. And you've seen prices ease at the pumps in the last few weeks or so. In fact, from February till now, there's about 20% or more decline in fuel prices at the pumps. All of these would have played a role. And you realize that transport inflation for the first time now became the third largest division instead of the first all this while. And inflation from transport reduced from 70% to now about 52%. And that trend will improve. And you see that for the first time, petrol and diesel were out of the list of top 20 items. In fact, top 10 items that drove inflation. They were very near the top in times fast, really. So you could say that the reduction in fuel prices at the pumps, the cedi's improvement over time, and its pass through to general prices really may be accounting for the declining trend we are seeing. And of course, the Bank of Ghana has been steadfast in their position with the policy rate, raising the interest rate by so much. In this particular period, when they raised policy rate by 1.5% and then also increase the cash reserve ratio, there was so much liquidity on the banking system, which would otherwise have influenced inflation really. And we hear there is a memorandum on zero financing of the deficit going forward. And so all of these things are good signals that the monetary authorities are on top of the inflation dynamics really. And I guess their tight stance has played also a very large role in the decline we are seeing so far.
And my colleague Isaac Kofi J, of course, making some interventions there and talking about, for instance, the regional picture. The story about the Eastern region, for instance, it was doing quite well a couple of months back. Now it's the lead region, or one of the leading regions when it comes to the issue of inflation. What may be accounting for the disparities that we see across the various regions?
I haven't really averted my mind to the regional breakdowns and what may be driving, but on top of my head, the distribution channels across those regions could play a role. We know food is a big driver of inflation for places where it is very difficult to move things other than non-food across. In fact, a price of maybe a Coke or a milk, a tin of milk could be very, very different in, say, up north than here in Accra or some other regions. And the differentiator could be the transport costs and the other distributional bottlenecks that may be in the way. So we would have to look into it that way and then ascertain what the regional differences, what account for the regional differences. For Eastern region in particular, I'm unable to say pinpoint this is what the driver of inflation may be in that region. But I know for a large part, things like the distributional channels, availability of food, especially in the coastal areas where fish is produced in those places but not directly traded in those areas, there could be some scarcity of sorts even on the local market. These may all be factoring into inflation in those regions and accounting for the dynamics we are seeing.
Isaac Kofi is still with us. Kari, just hold on. Isaac, the issue about the currency and how it's playing a major role in all of this. So you're making an intervention earlier about that.
Yeah, so I was saying that, you know, one thing that influences everything is when the CD is doing well, it affects every other thing. Right now, we know that the dollar is under some sort of pressure where, you know, China and the BRICS are also saying that they would want to purchase, you know, fuel or crude oil in yuan rather than dollar. And all of these things, the external factors are, you know, some sort of good news for the currency here in Ghana. It's some sort of, you know, external shocks, giving us some sort of hope and cushion. So just like Kari said, you wouldn't pinpoint and say that there's some sort of, you know, direct policy here in our local markets causing all of these things. But the external factors that push the CD from 6 cities to 15 cities, I always say that there were so many artificial elements in there. So right now that you see those artificial elements correcting, the CD is beginning to gain back its, you know, usual status or where it is supposed to be.
But Courage, while we have, I mean, we're positive that the currency will do well. Just yesterday I was reading that there's been a marginal is it depreciation again? A marginal one, of course. That of course Isaac has just confirmed to us. So that's likely to throw us out of gear, isn't it?
No, not really. Not really. Movement in currencies are normal, and it's supposed to be the normal course of action, right? It is the magnitude of those movements and the sustained direction really that causes the problem. So either way, up or down movement is not desirable. You want stability around a certain if you like, mean figure really. What caused the city to move from about 682 pesos at the end of 2021 to tops of 16, 15 cities in 2022, like your colleague said, are mostly exogenous and of course overreactions due to what people perceive to be the situation on the market, and speculators made their bet out of it. Now that there is some hope that a program is coming and there will be a balance of payment support and all of that, and the pressures that led to the depreciation sharply, which was mostly portfolio reversals, and in this point in time, these foreign guys are not even able to sell their bonds in the first place, let alone even repatriate, which will cause pressure on the city. So we are where we are now. And so those abnormal movements up and down are actually quite expected, and it has been the case so far this year. If 2% depreciation, as we see it on the interbank market, is quite alarming. You see that in the last 3 or so weeks, the retail market has swung back into an appreciation territory. So you can see a 10 peso or 20 peso depreciation here and there. It's normal, but it becomes problematic if you are seeing that trend continue every day and you are moving maybe from 10, 55 peso to now 30, 50, 70 every day, and then it's going back into the 13, 14, 15 level. Then it becomes concerning. But at this point in time, I think it is broadly stable, and those movements around that mean figure is actually expected.
Okay, so going forward, what policy measures would you want to see in terms of consolidating where we are now and the gains that we're making?
I don't think we have reached a point where we want to even consolidate the gains. There is still much room for improvement. The CD can correct more. I think we could get to a level around 8 CD thereabout if we sustain the policy stance and we do the right things we have to do. You saw that the staff level agreement came to be that the CD corrected sometime even back to around 8 CD level. And if you look at where it came from to even that 8 CD, you would say that is still a sharp depreciation, really, regardless of the fact that it was a very sharp correction in that process. And so I think the natural support level for the CD around this time will be around the 8-9 CD level. How can we sustain that decline? I think the main concerns of the market now is the availability of dollars, one, and policies that can restore their sustainability and restore the macro, and correct the macro imbalances there are. To what extent can the IMF program resolve that? In fact, the policies and the target in that program may be very resolute and sounds good, but the implementation of it is actually important. And I think that going into this program, fiscal consolidation, not only for the program, but as a habit, entrenched. We had the fiscal responsibility law in 2019 that was supposed to ensure this, but unfortunately never got used because just a few months after its passage, we have had to suspend it. But I'm looking at restoring some of these things, and then we, as a habit now, ensuring discipline in the most strictest sense, and then ensure revenue growth is adhered to so we could actually finance our developmental aspirations mostly with our revenues, and the borrowings that come should not go into, if you like, the consumables and the not so desirable stuff, but into growth enhancing type of expenditures that could ensure that we are able to even pay the debt from the proceeds of those investments, really. I think those would be sustainable ways to look at it. The industrialization agenda that we have long touted, it's worth looking at in a very, very holistic way now. Things like your rice, tomatoes, and the many other things we could safely produce locally. This is time to allocate resources to them and then support the private sector to deliver some of these goods so we could reduce our reliance on the import of those things. If the goal for oil policy is worth it and it can bring about some stability in exchange rates and reduce the import bill, at least from that side, and I must say that that item alone consumes about almost $4 billion of dollars really every year. If we can look at it and it's worth keeping, and we can look at streamlining it properly, bringing some transparency into it, and use it as a permanent feature of our oil import management going forward, then we can realize the gain. So these are all up to be done. If we do those and do it sustainably, we should see inflation exchange rate remain stable for a long haul.
I see.
And particularly as we go into the program, the deficit monetization, we have the memorandum now in place, and well, it's not in place yet, but at least it's been drafted and all of that. We should adhere to it strictly, and beyond the program, if at all there will be deficit financing from the central bank, it should be limited to the thresholds in the Bank of Ghana Act,
I see.
and not the levels we saw in 2022.
Courage, I was just about going there. The spring meetings are underway in Washington. How should we be positioning ourselves as a country, knowing that if we sail through, there's going to be an IMF bailout. How do we position ourselves to take full advantage of that bailout program?
Well, yes, we've drafted the policy framework already, I believe, and that is what the IMF staff considered in agreeing at the staff level with us for a program. So the question will not be about the program per se, it's about how we implement them. Oftentimes, you see good behavior during programs and post-program reversibility. And so for me, my focus at this point is that, yes, we've done domestic debt restructuring. We've seen the challenges of 2022 going into 2023. We've seen the exchange rate problems. The policies, by all means, will tackle some of these issues and ensure that we reverse things to a normal place before the program ends. The question now becomes, what are we doing in terms of the legislative framework, the policy framework, and the structural framework to ensure and build in irreversibility into some of the gains we'll make into this program? And that is what I think, as part of the program, we should get technical support from the World Bank, from the IFC, from the IMF, and every other relevant institution to try to build irreversibility into the system. Fiscal responsibility is something we must look at and look at holistically. Why do we have a gift-made system which is not fully functional? All the modules are not operational. And you see district assemblies expenditures and a number of other expenditures go outside of the gift-made system, creating arrears to huge amount, which is the very reason gift-made was set up to solve. Really, we need to look at adopting fully now all the modules of that system, and ensure that we put pay to the arrears accumulation regime, and now go into a system where we can have clear visibility on our fiscal operations and be able to manage the risks that may emerge from it. On the exchange rate side, we've seen a number of interventions within this period. How can we entrench that? The forward auctions, the Bank of Ghana surveilling on the market more frequently to ensure that the rules are adhered to, and then we know the black market operators. Is it a 9-day wonder? How do we entrench that going forward and ensure that even the forest bureaus and the market players play to the rules, so you do not see arbitrage at some point in the market which can cause the spikes we are seeing on the market? Really, those are things we need to begin to look at holistically. And of course, the central bank and its role in financing our deficit, I've made that point already. How do we ensure that going forward we do not see 45 billion deficit financing from the central bank? But if at all we need it, it will be something to the barest minimum. Those are things we need to entrench. If we do that, we will be building irreversibility and may not have to look at these issues again in the future.
Okay, then that's what we hope for. Harry, it's good to speak to you this afternoon. Very insightful conversation there. And Kofi, we need to go. But the way forward and what, of course, the Statistical Service is also hopeful for.
Well, remember that we've all been speaking about the performance of the cedi, and then the fact that because the cedi is doing so well, we see it, impacting on inflation. Remember, there's one thing we are not doing this year, and is that we've defaulted on almost all of our, external loans. We are not paying interest, we are not paying charges, we are not paying principal payments. So we have that kind of space for the dollar or for the cedi to have its stability. Right. But once maybe we drag this whole thing and we are not able to get the IMF executive board approval, of which I know by the end of May or April we'll be able to get. But we need to make sure that we utilize the fiscal space that we have currently. Right. And the less pressure that is being put on the cedi, we must make sure we consolidate the kind of gains we have. So many artificial elements in there, but we need to make sure that we put in policies in place to make sure that the cedi comes to its normal level. Right. And just like the governor said, maybe they'll keep hiking the policy rate, but creditors or those who are also borrowing from the private market are watching, and they are saying interest and inflation is coming down. And we know, the game that they play. So if inflation is coming down, we want to see policy rates also coming
corresponding
down.
Decline.
Exactly, but we are not seeing the same thing. So probably those are some of the things that, creditors want.
Isaac, we need to go. Isaac Jay is a data analyst here at JoyNews. Of course, thanks to Courage also for joining us. But let's stay on the economy. Specifically, let's talk about the fuel prices and even the supply of the product itself, because JoyNews is learning this afternoon that some of the fuel operators, especially the state-owned GOIL, is running out of some of its supplies. My colleague James Kwesi has been visiting some of the outlets and brings us the latest.
JoyNews' checks at 4 GOIL stations along the Odoko-Kaneshi Road reveals shortage of super at all 4 stations. Although 2 stations at Odoko have both super and diesel shortage, GOIL at Atiko Malam Junction and Malam Market both have diesel but no super. The situation appears to be an only GOIL problem because other OMCs along the stretch have fuel. Executive Secretary of COPEC, Duncan Amwa, explains why.
I can confirm that there's been some light supply disruptions with GOIL. Personally, I did a few of their outlets just yesterday, and it was difficult to get fuel. We have to probe and ask a few questions what probably could be accounting for, on the back of the fact that we had earlier made a prediction that the second window for April is likely to see fuel prices go up. We were thinking that it was simply the issue of hoarding, where dealers were not willing to put products at the forecourts because they anticipate a price adjustment upwards. But when we checked, it was just simply because they were not able to get the sort of products that they do supply on a regular to some of their outlets, and that has led to the no fuel sign at a lot of the forecourts, where in some cases you may be lucky to get diesel but no petrol. In other cases, you don't even get the 2 products altogether.
Are you expecting that it gets worse, spreading to other parts of the country in the coming days?
Well, it is likely they would be able to stem the tide. If you look at that, they have been able to discharge per our checks some 26 million liters of the specific fuel that they put out on the market just last night. It is expected that they will be able to ease the shortage situation across pumps across the country, but that might take a couple of days, even up to a week, to be able to rectify.
Which means that the shortage is limited to oil and GOIL, not the other fuel OMCs.
For now, I can confirm a lot of the other OMCs have products. GOIL is just trying to be specific with themselves, and for which reason most people will be turned back.
Well, we have a statement from GOIL explaining what exactly is happening at many of its outlets across the country. Let's get to that statement and get a bit of a clarity on what's happening to the State Petroleum Company. Now, GOIL wishes to acknowledge to the public, especially its valued customers, that there have been some shortages of its Super XP RON 95 at some of its stations. The shortages which were experienced during the Easter holidays were because of the operational challenges occasioned by supply disruptions. Now, GOIL has meanwhile taken delivery of enough products and has yesterday taken adequate steps to dispatch over 2 million litres to our fuel stations experiencing the shortages. Over 2 million litres more will be dispatched today. Additionally, GOIL intends to release more stocks to the affected stations in the next 2 days to augment supplies at the stations. So GOIL is apologizing for the inconveniences caused to consumers. And you're still with us here on The Pulse. When we return, we'll talk about some more stories. Please stay. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association says that the decision by the UK government to red list Ghanaian nurses from entering the UK will not stop the issue of brain drain. The United Kingdom government indicated that Ghana should not be actively targeted for the recruitment of nurses and healthcare workers. However, the registered nurses say this will not prevent the trend of a lot more nurses moving out of the country. David Tinkranchum is the General Secretary of the group.
The system of recruitment is different, okay? They have various means of recruiting health workers in UK. You, as an individual, can apply to a health institution and you'll be taken on board. And it's ongoing and it will continue because migration is a right. There is no way they can stop anybody from coming to United Kingdom to come and work. So long as you have the requisite qualification. It's just politics. They can never stop it. Look, by close of 2020, UK had lost about 40,000 healthcare workers. How are they going to replace that? So the recruitment process will go on. The WHO has a guideline on ethical recruitment, and that is what they are seeking to emphasize. But it does not preclude them from continuing to employ our people. For instance, the Ministry of Health has an ongoing conversation to sign a bilateral agreement with the UK government to export nurses to United Kingdom. That, I'm told, has not been put on hold. But don't let anybody delude himself into thinking that if UK is stopping nurses and midwives from coming to their country, then it means that the attrition has stalled. No. There are various destinations. Austria has opened up, Germany has opened up. And what government must do is to be very intentional about putting in measures that will retain our people. We don't need to train and lose them. Okay. The good people of this country also deserve quality health care.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health says it is taking steps to engage stakeholders on the matter.
Okay, good afternoon, Aisha. I think this is a very simple issue, but still complicated. One, the UK, this release we are talking about, has not put a complete ban on recruitment of health professionals. They are looking at their interests and not ours. Yes, they will do what is ethical, but ultimately they will want to man up when it comes to the shortfall they have in their healthcare delivery system. Look, if you tell an agency not to recruit actively or to bear in mind that some countries are at risk, it does not necessarily mean that recruitment will not go on, visas will be issued, what have you. So the key thing for us is, as a state, what are we doing to preserve what we have, to contain and retain the professionals that we have trained? The UK is also not the only country that recruits health professionals. For the last 3 to 4 decades, Ghanaian professionals have worked in the Middle East, they've worked in Europe, not UK alone, but Europe as a broader continent. We are talking about North America, Canada, United States, and other places. So the opportunity for health professionals to migrate still abound. And what we need to do as a people is to put in the right measures that will help retain our professionals here, not to rely on some publications that a country says you are on a red list when it comes to recruitment, but there is no complete ban on such recruitment. Individuals are still going there in droves. If an agency can send 100 people, and let's say for ethical reasons they send 10, and the individuals on their own move, and you have 100, what have you done? There's nothing different.
And apologies there, that's Dr. Justice Youngson of the Ghana Medical Association. But let's talk politics now, because the New Patriotic Party in the Ashanti region says it intends to use the upcoming by-election within the Kumawu constituency to deepen its dominance over the Ashanti region, which is known to be the base of the governing party. And Ojima has more in this report.
The NPP MP for Kumawu constituency, Philip Baswa, died last month, leaving the seat vacant. On Monday, the party opened nominations for members who have shown interest to contest the seat on the party's ticket. Already, 5 people, including Edward Osei, who came second in the last primaries, have picked forms to contest the seat. Justice Odro speaks for him.
In our party, we reward loyalty and hard work. Lawyer came in last primaries. He didn't go. He stayed here, worked with the party executive delegates. So he's a grassroots man. That's why I'm saying he will win massively.
Others include Philip Bano, Ernest Yao Enim, Dacosta Abuaje, and Amasewa, the only female to have filed so far. NPP chairman in Ashanti, Bernard Enchibo Siako, says the party is encouraging the youth and women to contest the election.
So once you are bringing the nomination, you will bring it, if you are above 40 and above, you have to add another 35,000 Ghana cedi. And the youth, woman, and disabled will pay 17,500. This is what so far.
Chairman Wuntumi says the party is committed to ensuring continuity in the development of the constituency under a new leader as Member of Parliament. He is convinced of victory.
Badaroma, ayade akwa biaso. Ye be win ewo eye by election no. Onyankopon ka ye ho.
We will win the by-election. We are saddened by the demise of our MP, Philip Baswa, before the end of his tenure. Whoever is elected as flag bearer by the delegates will be accepted and supported to win the seat again. The win will be massive. Whoever is elected will be overwhelmingly endorsed by the people.
Now, you win massive votes at the Ama no Anna MPP. Na yedi ashagana enwan munya no so watimenya kwanya akọ abankasie mu na watimi akwakoye adwuma de ama okumawu.
The picking of nominations for NPP aspirants continues till Friday. The National Democratic Congress has already put forth Kwesi Amankwa as its candidate for the by-election. He is already on a campaign.
Right, we were prepared a year ago, because we have taken that seat very seriously. We need to take that seat back for NDC. So we've been prepared a year ago, and now we are ready for the battle. Even if we have to go to vote tomorrow, we are ready. And we are 100% sure that we are going to win the seat for NDC.
For JoyNews, Nana Ojima, Kumasi.
The Network for Community Water Services, NETCOWAS, is expressing its displeasure of a government's inability to manage small water utilities in communities dotted across the country. The group says that many of the boreholes and other sources of water, mechanized boreholes that serve as a source of water for these rural communities continue to be threatened by infrastructure or in the agri sector, and also the lack of funding. There's more in this report.
Since its inception in 1994, the National Community Water and Sanitation Program has increased rural water access in Ghana to 74% in 2021. Communities over the years developed local capacities for managing small water utilities and ensured continuous functionality of water systems through sale of water to finance operations and maintenance expenditure. But most community-managed water supply are presently challenged with grant access, commercial and blended financing for critical capital expenditure, severed water distribution lines by contractors, and lack of access to smart solar water meters. Speaking at the first conference of the Network of Community Water Services, Director of Operations for the group, Fred Asafweje, expounded some strategies to mitigate the challenges.
For community managed pipe water systems, NETCOAS will collaborate with Center for Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, that's CWASH, to prepare specific project proposals and seek funding, that is including impact funds, for implementation of key sustainability improvement interventions. We therefore call on government and all stakeholders to appreciate the role and contributions of community-managed pipe water systems so as to plan for and extend the support needed to strengthen their place in the sector.
Illegal mining activities continue to ravage water sources in most communities in the Ashanti region. Professor Imoro Brima of the Planning Department of KNUST, however, emphasized that the management of community water supplies by traditional authorities could prevent pollution.
When you leave it with Ghana Water and Sewage Corporation, where they take their water source from streams and dams, they run a high risk of pollution. But with community water systems that are reliant on groundwater, the possibility of pollution is limited. And so for me, I will advocate for the community water systems. But that is not to say that the underground water cannot be polluted. It can also be polluted. But when you leave it to the community to manage, they can easily observe the source of pollution and stop it.
Executive Secretary of NETCOAS, Gifty Rhoda Afo, believes revenues accrued from water management systems could fuel progress of other developmental projects in communities.
We believe that they can sell their water with the help of what we are doing, giving them that ability to better account for it, and then also the meters that they will use in order to make money out of the water. So for NETCOAS, we are here to stay and we are here to empower the communities.
Vice President for the association, Moso Hema, Ranechampomaini Makotroka II, entreated communities with pipe water systems to become members of the Association for Long-Term Sustainability of Potable Water.
On this note, that I call on your respected chiefs, Queen Mothers, and Honorable Assembly members to ensure that all community-managed pipe water systems within their jurisdiction register and become active members of NETCOAS in order to guarantee the long-term sustainability of safe drinking water supply for the people and those yet unborn.
For JoyNews, Emmanuel Kweku reporting.
And there were tears of joy in the Asafo-Agona community when a non-governmental organization, My Help Your Help Foundation, handed over the keys of a renovated classroom block to the headmaster of the basic school in the community. There's more in this report.
The school was built 37 years ago to augment two other schools in the community to cater for the education needs of Agona Safo, located in the Agona West district of the Central Region. It was left in ruins for nearly 2 decades, making academic work difficult. Children from different classes had to be crammed into one room for lessons. But all that changed when My Help Your Help Foundation renovated the block following appeals by the community. Some students of the school shared their happiness with JoyNews.
At first, our foundation was not good at all because there was dust inside the classroom. So when we were learning, our school uniform was getting dirty because of the dust. And also our teachers, because of our blackboards, when they are writing, their hands were always getting dirty. But as for now, our boards are white, so when they are writing, they feel comfortable. And we also sit in nice classroom.
I started this school from primary, and our learning was not comfortable. Every day, class 4 and class 5, we come to our class. So when we are learning, everything will stick in our head. So now our learning is comfortable. Now the class 4 and class 5, they are not coming into our class. And now we have 4 boards. And now our school is developing.
Headmaster of the school, Justice Henson, thanked the foundation for giving the school a new look.
When I entered into this compound, in fact, I was very sad because the kind of building that I saw, in which children were schooling in, it wasn't good at all. So I promised that you look for help. Upon looking for help, a colleague teacher contacted Your Help Foundation, and then they came together. They met us in this school and decided to come and help us, at least renovate the building and then provide us with other facilities. In fact, they've done what Napoleon couldn't do, and we thank them for availing themselves to squeeze water from stone to help the children.
Founder of the foundation, Nicholas Kofi, indicated that his NGO decided to undertake the project to provide a conducive learning environment for the students.
Nelson Mandela once said that the most powerful weapon in life is education, and education changes the whole world. So we believe in education because it's falls under the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which ensures that all-inclusive quality education for all. So that's what we believe in. That's how come we came here to renovate the entire school. We have done we've renovated a 6-unit classroom block from primary to GSS, where we have done masonry work. We have done demarcations of the various classroom blocks, i.e. before then, hitherto the children were in just an open classroom block. So we have class 1, class 2, class 3, all put together. But we've been able to partition or demarcated the various classroom blocks where class 1, class 2, class 3 will all be in their various classrooms and learn whatever they are supposed to learn. We've also changed all the blackboards that were old since 1986. We've now converted all those blackboards to white foam-maker boards with markers, beautifully done. We've painted the school. God been so good.
The foundation also provided the school with portable water, which will also serve the community.
Same school and the community in Asafo, AEDA Basic School, had not been so fortunate to be connected to potable water. Myself and Jody, as the community, put resources together. We were able to connect them to potable water via Ghana Water Corporation, Ghana Water Company, where we were able to supply the school and the whole community with access to potable water.
My Help Your Health Foundation is an NGO that aims at alleviating the plight of the poor.
And later this Saturday, Germany will be shutting down its last nuclear plant. That plant actually was supposed to be shut down some 2 years ago due to energy concerns. The planned shutdown was delayed for some few more months. But now this is beginning to stoke a lot of debates in Germany about the energy security of the country and what this means for the future of the European nation. Let's speak now to Emily Schultes, who's with our partners DW in Berlin, joining us with the latest on this. Emily, how did this decision come about, and why is this actually happening now?
Well, this is a decision that has been a long time coming. So after the Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan in 2011, the German government at the time, under Chancellor Angela Merkel, had made the decision that over the course of the next decade, they were planning to phase out all of Germany's nuclear power plants. And that process had been well underway when we got to last fall, where there were only 3 remaining plants scheduled to be closed by the end of the year. And because of the war in Ukraine and the resulting debates about energy shortages and potential energy crises this winter, then the German government said that they wanted to keep them online for a few extra months just to make sure that they covered that gap. So it's really a decision that's been a decade in the making and was just slightly delayed in the end.
First of all, what's the significance of this, and how are the Germans themselves receiving this latest news?
Well, this is, as you said before, it has led to pretty contentious debate within the country. There are some political parties that have said, especially given this current situation, that it doesn't make sense for Germany to end or to close down these final remaining plants, to keep them open as a sort of insurance policy to help ensure that the country has the energy it needs. But it's been a contentious issue in the country for decades. And you have, for example, the Green Party, which is part of the current government, that was founded in part as an anti-nuclear party. And so there's been very much debates about sort of the identity of the country and sort of the way that the country gets its energy, the way that it's going to sort of transition into a green future, and all of these things play a role here. So what's interesting right now is among the population, you're actually seeing a shift in opinion. There's a recent poll showed that 2/3 of the German population would like to keep these plants online for at least the foreseeable future, which is definitely an interesting thing to add to this debate about what the future of German energy should look like.
And Emily, I'm really interested in that, looking at the debate and how this will fit into the entire picture for the whole of Europe. How's that debate unfolding?
Sure, well, just as it's a contentious issue in Germany, it's also an issue with a lot of different opinions and a lot of different approaches across the continent. So France, for example, is a country that relies heavily on nuclear energy, and rather than powering down its plants, has made plans to continue to build future plants in coming years. There's also countries like Italy that have long not been in favor of nuclear power. And then you have a handful of other countries that, for similar reasons to Germany, are deciding maybe to delay the end of it, or maybe to potentially look into new nuclear plants in the future. Belgium, for example, has said that it will now delay its plans to phase out nuclear power for another 10 years. So this is a question on which there are a wide range of opinions across Europe and definitely no consensus.
For now, Emily Schultes with our partners DW in Berlin. Thank you for joining us. But that's not the end of the debate. It's even raging on here in Ghana as the country is making significant investments in nuclear energy. What's the implication and why are we doing this now? We'll explore that when we get back from this break. Please stay. Welcome back. Earlier we were telling you about Germany's decision to shut down its last nuclear power plant. But why is Ghana investing heavily in this sector? Joining us now is Professor Seth Deborah, Director of the Nuclear Power Institute here in Ghana. Thank you, Seth, for your time on the Pulse. Let's start off with this broad debate going on in Germany. That's, of course, a much more developed nation as compared to Ghana. So the question is obvious, that why are we investing in this area when countries that are far advanced are beginning to slow down on the reliance on nuclear energy? It appears we're having...
Thank you very much, and thank you for...
Yeah, Prof, I hope you can hear me.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yes, now we can hear you, yes.
Okay, good. So Ghana is a sovereign country, so is Germany. That's also a sovereign country. But it will also interest you to know that Germany is not doing this based on the fact that this is more of an economical decision or a technology decision. It's doing this based on a Green Party decision or a Green Party policy. That's why it's doing this. Again, you also interested to know that Germany wanted to do this 2021, that it would take out all their nuclear power plants in operation. As I speak to you now, plants are still operating, nuclear power in Germany. As I speak to you now, the Green Party and its followers have decided that they want nuclear in their energy dispensation or energy mix. You will see that there is a certain agenda towards extending the lifespan of the nuclear power plants as per the current situation that we have in Europe, especially with the issue with Ukraine and issue with Russia not able to supply the needed gas that Germany also need. Also be enlightened that with all these, Germany is still building coal power plants. And that is something that we should also be mindful of, even though Germany is saying, okay, we don't want nuclear, but it's saying that we want coal to replace the base load that nuclear is able to give us. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. And as Ghana, we want industrialization. Energy is one of the key key catalysts that we need, that we can actually use to industrialize this country. We are not just talking about just any form of energy, but we're talking about stable, sustainable, and affordable energy that we have. From the 1980s, 60s up till now, we've had hydro, but hydro is dwindling. We have introduction of the thermal plants, which is very good. But again, we need to have another energy source that is of base load nature to be able to propel our industrialization agenda in this country and even in the sub-region.
Okay, so in terms of what's happening in the country, how much are you adding to the energy mix of the country, and what's your target really? So the target is to add 2,400 megawatts of nuclear energy into the energy mix by 2030. The plan is already approved by government as the program comprehensive report that was submitted to cabinet, that was approved by the president and his cabinet, and was announced, I think, somewhere 2022. So it's around 2,400 megawatts, but you still have to have a first plant in place, and then you can then build on the subsequent ones that you want. And again, it's not just for the country Ghana, but also for the sub-region. When you look into the sub-region, you know why Ghana is actually an energy production leader, an energy generation leader within it. And we don't have to lose that as a country, especially with the introduction of ACTA, that we need to kind of build up a certain form of energy source that is affordable, cheap, sustainable, again, to be able to support our industry and even attract more industries within the region. But then the issue about the energy, the technology, and the time involved, is it not better to prioritize other sources of energy? Other sources of energy have already been prioritized. If you look at Ghana, we are doing more of thermal right now because it's more of a transitional fuel, transitional technology. As you look at it, when you look at the energy transition that the Ministry of Energy is championing, you can see that gas is actually transitional energy. We need to move to a form of energy source that doesn't pollute, that also gives us cheap or what we call affordable energy tariffs. We need to move to energy sources that's able to provide the needed job that we actually need within this country, especially for the youth within the country. So yes, there should be some transition, and that transition is already inbuilt currently in our energy mix, and it's being built even before the time that the nuclear is even projected to come on, because nuclear is not an energy source that you want today, you get today. It takes about 10 to 15 years to plan and build. So it takes time, and we need that transition in terms of gas to be able to get there. And not just us, you can see in many countries also looking at that transition. You can see even in Europe, a lot of countries in Europe are using gas as a transition energy source before they get to the nuclear power plant. Do we have do we have enough funding for what's happening now? So there is a difference in nuclear. Let me just be a bit of a technical person here, even though I'm technical. Well, let me just be technical here. There is a difference between funding and finance, and I think what you are asking for is the financing aspect. The nuclear itself, again, has a high upfront cost but very low running cost. So you need some form of support in terms of financing to actually do this. No country around the world has been able to finance a nuclear power plant on its own. Always you need other partners to be able to do this. Almighty United Kingdom is getting help from elsewhere, including France, including China, to be able to build nuclear power plants. So let's not make it as if because of this high cost or high upfront cost, we won't be able to do it. Yeah, but you agree. But you agree that we cannot entirely take that out of the conversation. Of course, and that's the point I made. Even countries like UK are actually seeking help to do this. Country like Belarus, even like UAE, even sought help in doing this in terms of financing. So it's not something that I will even advise Ghana takes on its own and then try to do this. It's almost impossible to do that. But once you are able to attract the financing by building a very good program, you are able to attract financing to the project and even to the program to be able to do this. Okay, but are we getting some partnerships already, and some partners expressing interest in our nuclear power sector? Are we beginning to see some interest there?
So the interest is there. Ghana, through the Ministry of Energy, issued what we call the request for interest in our nuclear energy projects currently. We received six project interests for a large reactor and 9 interests for a small modular reactor. And you can say interest is there. We are actually having a follow-up that is being led by the Nuclear Power Ghana. That is the proposed owner-operator that was commissioned by the Ministry of Energy, that is being funded and technically shaped by the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, the VRA, that's the Volta River Authority, and We Power Authority. So there is some interest. Currently, we are having what we call follow-up request for information, where we are looking to meet countries that the government or the ministry have appointed us to look at in terms of whatever they are able to present to us, not just technology, but also financing to the project.
So how about the concerns regarding the sustainability of the environment and the likely impacts that we're to see if we start to running nuclear? Are you aware of that, and how are you taking measures to guard against it?
So environmental impact of nuclear is actually a perception around the world, and it's also a perception within this country, Ghana. But if you look at nuclear has never posed any environmental consequence. The picture you are showing currently, you have what we call cooling towers. Cooling towers are used to cool the reactor, and those cooling towers, what is coming out of that cooling tower is actually not soot. It's water vapor. So you have water vapor coming out. Technically, you have water actually coming out as a byproduct of the nuclear power plant. In terms of environmental issues, I'm not much aware of any other environmental issues, because over 400 nuclear power plants are operating around the world, including 2 in South Africa, but you don't hear of any environmental issues. It's also worthy to know that because of its good environmental track record, countries in Africa are considering it. Countries around Europe are not even considering, but even building it. Turkey is one of them that is currently building 2 nuclear power plants in their country. You have countries in Asia that are building. UAE will commission its 4th nuclear power plant this year, hopefully, and will actually. So it has a good track record of environmental. When it comes to the environmental aspect of the power plant generation. So again, it's a perception that people have, and that perception needs to be cleared. And I'm glad that we are having this conversation to actually make a clear difference between a nuclear power plant that actually out of its cooling tower comes water vapor, and other power plants that actually produces soot. So I think that will be for the issues of the environmentalists and all those things. But again, I'm sure the issue of waste will also come, which may also impact the power plants. But things people also don't understand is that this waste has a certain activity, it has a certain strength, and the strength decreases as the years go along. And we took some of our people to Ghanaians that are not even nuclear engineers or non-nuclear physicists to an advanced country like Japan that has suffered Fukushima, that has suffered Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the World War. But again, they are venturing into nuclear power plants. And there is a very good reason why they are going. The environmental impact, or the good environmental track record is one of those reasons why they are going back to nuclear.
The long-term target you gave was 2030. Is that when we'll see a complete onboarding of what you're doing at your outfit onto the national energy mix?
So my outfit deals with the program. So when I talk about the program, everything that should make sure that the project actually works. So the project itself is being carried out by what the institution called Nuclear Power Ghana that I mentioned. Currently, they are located in the Bui towers at the airport, in the airport area. Now, you will see a full nuclear power plant operating within Ghana by 2030, and that's when you will have everything actually coming together, and people will see a nuclear power plant operating within this country.
Okay, so not until 2030, we're not going to see any sign of nuclear power adding to our mix.
And not until 2030. If you want it before 2030, nuclear is, unfortunately, nuclear is not a power plant that you rush. You can't cut corners with nuclear. It's a very delicate technology. It's a very complex technology, but very efficient in what it does. So you need to take your time there. The planning needs to go on. The implementation of the various issues needs to be addressed. Issues like what's the funding and finance, which you asked, what's the human resource that we need to build, and then all those things needs to be there. It needs to be established before you operate a nuclear power plant. You don't want to start operating a nuclear power plant and then you have issues with human resource that you don't have people to either maintain, operate a nuclear power plant. You need to maintain it because it's a long-term power plant that operates a minimum of 60 years, an extension of 20 years, making its operating life close to about 80 years or even more than that. So it is a plan that takes patience to build, and it's a plan that takes patience to plan.
And so which stage do you find yourselves now?
Which stage we find ourselves, not myself. So currently we are in the second phase 2 of the nuclear power program that we are now looking at vendors. We are establishing the various institutions that are involved. We are putting the various infrastructure in place to make sure that in phase 3 we build and commission the plan. So it's a 3-phase approach. We've already gone past phase 1, and it's not a program that we are doing in secret or in darkness. We are doing this in clear view with the International Atomic Energy Agency and other international bodies actually looking at this, coming into peer review, the various steps that we are taking, the various ways that we are using to address the issues that are related to nuclear power plant infrastructure development and all that. So we got past phase 1 just last year. That with a proper announcement from the president that Ghana is going nuclear based on the various technical works that was carried out by the Ghana Nuclear Power Program Organization that is being represented at the technical level by the Nuclear Power Institute of the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission.
Okay, we'll see how that will unfold, but then I just hope that you've already identified some of the companies that you'll be working with. Are you certain on that already?
We are very much certain. Thursday, we are having a virtual meeting with some of our advanced partner countries. We've done together with them what we call an industrial survey, that we know that industries that are in the country and what we need to build to make sure that the nuclear power plant doesn't suffer any hitch or have a good supply chain within this country. So we are having a dissemination seminar or a conference with Association of Ghana Industries and is it the Chamber of Contractors or so, construction, the Chamber of Construction. So we are in touch with almost every other institution that we need to actually do or have that relationship with. We are also talking to other CSOs. We are talking to professional bodies within this country. We are talking to the various associations the various ministries that are responsible for information, responsible for communication, responsible for education, responsible for trade. Every other ministry that is related to this program we are talking to. And we identify the various companies, the various institutions that needs to be set up to make sure this happens and happens in a safe, secure, and safeguarded manner.
And finally, if there's any fascinating benefit that you would want the public to know about as you run this nuclear project, what would you want that to be?
So I think we've hammered this over and over again. For a nuclear power plant, and when I hear people saying, well, this is a good plant, but again, you are just looking for a job for yourself. I already have a job as a researcher. I love what I do. as a researcher, and I also as a program developer. So the nuclear power plants actually takes over only 10% of nuclear engineers. So all the people working, about 1,000 people working within one nuclear power plant, you have only 10% being nuclear engineers. The rest are chemists, they are accountants, they are auditors, they are communicators, they are cleaners. So you have all sorts of people, chemists, electrical engineer, civil engineer. So you have all sorts of people coming in, and with our board, our U board, we need to find a way to actually channel their skill into doing whatever that we are doing within this country. And the 1,000 people, I'm just talking about the people who are going to do the operation, the people who are going to build. Currently in Turkey, the 2 power plants are taking over 11,000 people on site, and this is direct job. I'm not talking about the indirect or the spin-offs. No, I'm just talking about direct jobs that are being created currently in Turkey. And we can do something similar or something more than that if we are able to put our things well and we have the support of the populace or the general public to actually go on with this. So we need to create jobs for our people. We need to enrich our country. We need to provide some diversity in our energy portfolio. We need to bring some form of good level of base load for our industries to benefit from. So it's not just power, it's also about job creation, it's also about strengthening our industries within the country.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it here. Professor Seth Deborah, Director of the Nuclear Power Institute. I'm grateful for your time here on The Pulse. Keep setting good examples for others. That's the message from the Education Minister, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, to Dr. Nathaniel Ni Kujo. He's one of the outstanding students who recently graduated at the University of Cape Coast. Here's why the minister is elated about his performance.
The newly minted medical doctor just graduated from UCC. I'm sure the nation saw the awards that he picked up at his graduation ceremony, and we're all amazed as to how he was able to do that. So I felt that I should take some time off my schedule to congratulate him personally and to let him know that we truly appreciate the hard work that has won him those laurels. And it's our hope that other students that watched him will be able to know that it's possible to excel in your academic work when you focus and dedicate yourself in a manner that brings you those laurels. And we are so happy that you've made all of us proud. You stand for what is right with the Ghanaian education system. And we want to congratulate you on behalf of the Ministry of Education and to let you know that we are with you. We wish you well in your professional journey, and we want you to become a good ambassador of our education system and let other children know how they can also succeed.
The laureate himself, Dr. Nathaniel Kujo, had this to say.
That are training medical students is something that's there. The challenges are mostly have to do with the content of the material. You mostly have a lot of things to study. Mostly it's not that the thing is so difficult to grasp, but the content of the medical education is so much. So personally, I believe that academic discipline is very, very, very important so that you'll be able to manage your time properly in order to make sure that you are well prepared for each exam that you sit for. You also need to have a lot of perseverance because the journey is not always a smooth one. There are ups and downs. So you need to know how to manage your down moments, make sure you learn from them, and make sure you are not committing the same mistake twice.
Dean of the University of Cape Coast Medical School, Professor Sebastian Ellison, also indicated that already 12 students from the first batch of the UCC Medical School have specialized in many fields.
We pride ourselves with training medical students who are more community-oriented and are critical thinkers. You know, if you look at our curriculum, is very different from the very traditional system that is run in most of the traditional medical schools that we came to meet. And that the results, for me, are there for everybody to see. The doctors that we have produced, I think the first batch of doctors that we produced, 42 of them have already specialized in various fields of medicine in Ghana. Yes, and the ones that followed, are also specialized very quickly.
Former President John Dramani Mahama is in the eastern region while he's been promising to create more jobs for the teeming youth of this country.
Your whole boy for you. Emre say your democracy. Ghana na dia. Enti almost as party kids you best sacrifice it. But yes, so your chefa Ghana etimima akwenya say yenya. I was say ye bomb Diana, your party for Sunya or my chefa. Ye be waha, and Crophobi ware waha, yeto obi badin waha. Every day, Okonia can say, oh, yeah, branch chairman. Hey, branch chairman, I'm going to say a post case you. And so almost expect to say, you know, obey, a best some book. Meanwhile, watch and train. Ezu. Enti. Me can't say meet you amoka and amamuska na metimia ibibi. But we will find employment for you so that you can earn an income and also be able to look after the party. Those who can work will find you employment. Those who can work, you can open something of your own. Sewunya o poultry farm bi na o ton koko ne nkosia kakra. E de dwetire bi beba wo botom. Wokọ a wo twa beba na also dey akobon sawa. We will help you with employment opportunities. We will help you to set up your own businesses so that you can look after yourselves. We will seek the welfare of our party people. We will no longer expect that you only sacrifice so that other people enjoy. The opportunities that all Ghanaians enjoy, our party executives and our party cadres must also enjoy the same opportunities. Yabeye jumading na mepese by midnight ekobo 1 a.m. 7th December 2024 na yedim say NDC yenya ye.
And the Vidiase District Court has granted bail to 7 individuals being arraigned for allegedly assaulting some police officers at a snap checkpoint in the Ashanti region. Nana Yao Jima has the rest of the story.
The prosecution, in their opening statement, requested that the court only read the charges and case details to the suspects. They further stated that investigations into the incident remain incomplete. One of the 7 suspects, Thomas Kwesi, is hospitalized from injuries sustained in the brawl. All 7 were charged with conspiracy to commit crime and assault on a public officer. A driver of the vehicle in which the suspects were in, 32-year-old Felix Boatin, was charged with failure to use all reasonable means to stop the commitment of felony by the 6. The facts of the case presented to court revealed the suspects, in an attempt to stop the police officer Sylvester Nanabehine from conducting a check on their vehicle, struggled with the police officer, resulting in the discharge of the police officer's rifle. It further states the suspects further assaulted the officer as his phone was stolen. To complete investigations, prosecution pleaded for suspects to be remanded. Counsel for the suspects, Henry Ohimenkusi, in defense, prayed the court to grant the suspects bail since the offense is a misdemeanor.
Looking at the charge for which they appeared before the courts, it's a misdemeanor, and for that matter, it would not be in the interest of justice, in my humble opinion, it would not be in the interest of justice if the court should refuse the grant of bail just because the state says that investigations are ongoing. It may take forever for investigations to be completed. And I think the court, in its opinion, agreed with us. Before I came to court this morning, I had a chance to speak to these people, and I visited the one A2 who is on admission, and they all informed me that it's not true. They didn't assault the public officer, and if I'm to take my client's word as it is, I would say it's not true until it is proven otherwise.
The court, in granting bail application, condemned attacks against public officers. His Worship, Frank Ni Ashite Ado, presiding over the court, says if civilians go about attacking police officers, then security of the citizenry, including that of the magistrate himself, is not assured. Families of the suspects received the news in excitement. Live news sources indicate the police officer who sustained injuries at the knee remain hospitalized. For JoyNews, Nanaya Ojima, Kumasi.
Well, that's all we have for you here on the Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have a lot of stories there for you. Next.